Hello babes, we are going to move into reviewing some of the holiday edition releases for 2020, and the first of these is the Charlotte Tilbury Bejewelled Eyes to Hypnotise palette. Now this was an online exclusive about a month ago, but it's available online on sephora.sg if you're in Singapore, and what it is a collection of 4 separate trios, which you should be able to see here. Now you can see just by looking at the palette, this is quite a warm toned color story overall. You have the plummy ones, which are a little bit neutral, slightly cool, but everything else is either neutral or really warm, so you have to like this type of colors. The other thing worth noting is that out of the 12 shades, you only get 3 mattes. Everything else is very, very metallic, very pearlescent, very sparkly. So if you have very, very textured eyelids, or you want more mattes to work with when you do your looks, then you maybe want to avoid this palette. The palette does come with a plastic insert, and you have instructions for how to use each of the shades or trios. One is supposed to be a prime shade, so this is what Charlotte Tilbury usually apply all over the lid. And then you have number 2, which is enhance, and this is what she usually uses in the socket, in the outer corners, just to shade and add shape and definition to the eyes. Number 3 is a smoke shade, and Charlotte typically uses these to line the eyes, go along the bottom lash line, and also deepen up the outer corners for a little extra oomph. Alright, now that I've got two matching eyes and some lipstick on, this is So 90s by Charlotte Tilbury. I'm wearing it quite light as a stain. I'm now going to share my thoughts on whether you should pick this up or not. Now, taken in its entirety, this is a beautiful color story, but if you break it up into the trios, not all of them work equally well. This would not necessarily have been my first choice as a trio, just because everything is just kind of bronzy, medium brown, and there isn't a highlight, there isn't a definer shade, there isn't a smoke shade, so you kind of need to play with three colors that kind of muddy up into the same color if you're just using this as a trio by itself. If you were to mix in one of the stronger matte shades or even the deep purple here, this could be taken to the next level, so definitely don't be constricted by the trio layout. As with all things makeup, this is just a suggestion. It's not a rule and you don't have to follow the structure. One other good point is the price tag. Now obviously this is not a cheap product, this is a luxury palette, it's a holiday palette. However, if you consider the fact that this is priced just slightly higher than her usual quartz, and those only come with 4 shadows, not a lot of product, this is definitely much more value for money. If you happen to like Charlotte Tilbury's style, you like those shimmery pearlescent looks that she does all the time, and you've been meaning to check out some of her eyeshadows, I would actually pick this up over some of her single quartz just because you get so much more bang for your buck. Another great thing, the formulation of every single shade in this palette is on point. All the mattes are super silky and finely milled, they're easy to blend. The shimmers are really buttery and creamy. Now I didn't even go in with a damp brush today, but you can do that with her metallic formulas if you want that really glazed foil metal look. Now onto the cons, and obviously there are going to be a few. First being the absolute metallic pearlescent overload. Now if you have more mature eyelids, if you have a lot of texture around your eye area, fine lines, crepiness that you don't want to emphasize, it's going to be quite hard to do many looks with this palette simply because everywhere you look, it's just pearls, 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 and these will emphasize fine lines, it will emphasize crepiness. The second issue for me is the lack of contrast in some of these trios. Now these two, they have slightly different textures. One is more of a foiled metal and the other is a softer pearl, but the color tones are so similar that by the time you blend these onto your eyelid, they kind of just meld into one another and look like the same shade. It's a very similar situation with this trio as well. Now the plum one has a nice color contrast, but because there's no texture contrast, you have 3 metallic shades. It has a high tendency to just sort of muddy up into the same color, and you just end up with this vague kind of raisiny shade in the center here. Out of the 4 trios, Love Glow to me is the perfectly designed one. Lastly, if you have a very deep skin tone, you just end up with kind of metallic highlight overload using this palette. You have a couple of slightly stronger options here, but there's not a lot, so the number or variety of looks that you could get out of this may not be as high as someone with a lighter skin tone, just because you would be able to see more color contrast between each of these shades on a lighter skin. Again, just to sum up, I think this is a pretty good value if you don't already own a lot of Charlotte Tilbury products. I mean, just pick it up over the holidays, you get a lot more bang for your buck than usual, and it's a very nice color story. And that's it. I hope I covered most of the points that I wanted to. I mean, whether you agree or not, sound off below in the comments. Let me know if you like this palette, whether you will be picking it up, or if you just think, no, not for me, not this year. As always, I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I will see you in the next video.